Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott, otherwise known as B. Scott. Well, we made it through another IndyCar NASCAR Super Weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We had the Indy Cars on Saturday. We had the NASCAR race on Sunday. It was a lot of fun. B. Scott was there.
Don't sleep on the Xfinity guys either on Saturday. They put on quite a good show. AJ Allmandinger looked really good in that race. Everybody looked good in that race. That was a fun one. That was another fun one.
Yeah, I will say I didn't watch a whole lot of the Xfinity race. I did get a little bit of a glimpse of it when I was at the gym on Saturday. But yeah. So and again, we'll get to it a little bit later. The NASCAR's racing on the road course is always a lot of fun. And it was just a fun weekend. So we're here to wrap it all up. We're gonna break down each race and then kind of give our perspective on the way the rest of the season should play out for each sport. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But B. Scott, how was it this weekend? How was it being there at the track?
It was a lot of fun. It was interesting to see how the fan attendance for both days. It was pretty crowded. It was a good crowd for the IndyCar race. And then it cleared out fairly quickly after that race before the Xfinity race. But I don't usually watch the Xfinity series all the time, but it's racing. Let's be honest. Come on, it doesn't matter. And there was a lot of NASCAR guys that were racing in that Xfinity race, and it's a part of your ticket. Why would you leave? I don't know. I don't get it. But it was a great race. AJ Allmandinger won that race. Alex Bowman looked phenomenal in the Hendrick car. Unfortunately, he couldn't carry that performance over to Sunday, but it was interesting because it became a real big pit battle. AJ Allmandinger's crew just couldn't get him out real quick. Alex Bowman kept beating him out, but my buddy noticed, he goes, wait a second. The guys doing the pit stop for Alex Bowman are his cup car guys. So it's like the varsity pit crew versus the JV squad. It's like, okay. Now it makes sense why AJ Allmandinger's crew is not getting him out so quickly. Because it's like, geez, Allmandinger's having some pretty quick stops. How is he not maintaining his lead on pit road? It's like, oh, got it. See it. Totally understandable. But hey, it was a great weekend. Perfect weather for racing. Some cloud cover every now and again, a good breeze, cooler full of ice cold Busch Lights. Not much more you could ask for.
No, not at all. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it here. We're gonna first start with the IndyCar guys. We'll go, in chronological order here as far as races go. So for the IndyCar race on Saturday, first of all, it did not start. The weekend was fun for you, B. Scott, but did not start out well as far as your picks go. Neither of our picks for either race really panned out a whole lot. But Pato Award, B. Scott's pick to win spins on the opening lap. My dark horse, Simon Pagenaud, he ran out of fuel on lap 36. That was some of the highlights early on. Lap 42, Colton Herta has a mechanical failure. So that was bad.
He was going to win that race up until that point.
Right. And he won the GP in May as well. So it was a strong candidate, a guy who needed a good finish, to kind of get back into things here. That turns the lead over to Alexander Rossi, and Rossi just never really looked back. He leads the rest of the way.
He was had a strong car all weekend.
Right. And he was another driver that was up there during the GP. He's had some stronger races since Indy. I know he did well at Detroit, Road America. I don't think he ended up doing well at Road America, but he was up there. So yeah, Alexander Rossi never looks back. He leads the rest of the way to earn his first win since 2019. He led 40.
That's unreal.
It's crazy to think about because, this is a guy who in the early days of the podcast, we would talk about championship contender. He's a guy that's up there mixing it up for the championship title. And he just, hasn't had a great last few years. We'll get to that a little bit here in a minute. But he leads 44 laps total. He ends a 49 race winless streak. Joined Scott Dixon, Will Power, and Simon Pagenaud as drivers who have won on the who have won the Indy 500 and a race on the IMS road course. In the NTT IndyCar Series, Christian Loongaard, a great run for him. He finishes second.
Unbelievable run for him.
Yeah, a name I didn't expect to see up there.
It was interesting watching qualifying. He got up there, and even the commentators were like, "Hey, that's a great run for Christian Lundgaard, for him to be able to start up there that high. Hopefully he can capitalize on that." Man, did he capitalize on that.
Yeah, because we've seen some rookies here as of late, like have good qualifying runs, be up there, and then once the race starts, they kind of fade. So a good run for him. Will Power is third. Scott Mclaughlin is fourth. And Joseph Newgarden rounds out the top five. So all Penske drivers after the top two there. That's pretty nuts. So yeah, a great run this weekend for the IndyCar Series as they wrap up their second race on the IMS road course. And we'll do kind of the same thing we did for the races in May, which is, one word to describe Alexander Rossi's win. For me, it's an easy one, but it's relief. I mean, he said it himself in the post-race interview. He's your 2016 Indy 500 winner. He won a career-high 3 races in 2018, 8 podium finishes, 10 top fives, finishes second in points. He follows that up in 2019 with 2 wins, Long Beach and Road America. He had 7 podiums, 11 top fives, finishes third in the points. And then from 2020 till this weekend, no wins, 8 podiums, 11 top fives. Not as if, he's had a few races where he's been in contention to win, but it's not like it's really been super close a lot of the times. Not great finishes at all. He's currently 11th in the point standings. Rossi's set to move to Arrow McLaren in 2023, and no matter what series he races in, if he had gone into it without a win in 3 years, that's going to be tough. And that was going to be a huge weight still kind of hanging over him if he's like, I'm moving to a new team. We're all excited. Let's see what happens. But I still haven't got a win since 2019. So he finally gets that win, get a little bit of momentum, to get that winless streak over and done with and come to the next chapter of your career with some, good spirit, some good vibes going. That's got to be a huge weight lifted. So Alexander Rossi can breathe a little bit easier. He's got that, first win back on the schedule. The winless streak is over, and he's back celebrating an IndyCar win.
So I'm trying to think, how would I describe this race or Alexander Rossi's win in one word? I'm gonna put my word as changing, but it's kind of more of it's game changing. This win is an absolute game changer for Alexander Rossi. It's going to help him get his swagger back. Not like Alexander Rossi has a lot of swagger anyways. Look, the guy got out of the car and was like, "Yeah, I won. Woo." He has like zero emotion most of the time. So, but it, like somebody said, it looked like that team that we've seen in the past, like prior to 2019, where, everybody was firing on all cylinders for that team. So I think it was a game changer for him for sure, especially going into his next move with Arrow McLaren. If he is an IndyCar, I don't know. They haven't said anything, but I am assuming IndyCar. I think it really helps start to build some momentum. If he can build on this race, now that he has that swagger back on the track, that he's got that monkey off his back, so now he can go just race and not have to worry about it. I think you could see him carry some strong momentum into next year, and then being with Arrow McLaren, see him really take off again and being a title contender. So I think this is the win that needed to happen, and it happened in a place that is special to just about anybody. So I think that really, this could really flip the script for him heading into the final 4 races of this year and then into next year as well.
Yeah, I can't imagine like the mental hurdle you would have to do, because in that time where, he's had that winless streak, Andretti Autosport as a team has kind of fallen a little bit from the premier teams, and you kind of think like, Okay, like so. Let's say this win doesn't happen. He goes into next year. He's on a 53 race winless streak, and you think like, okay, well he's gonna be in better equipment. Arrow McLaren's like kind of going from a up and coming team to now being one of those staple teams that you expect to see up at the front. But you kind of get in your head a little bit, and you're like, does it really matter? I've been with Andretti Autosport the last 3 years or last however many years, and I haven't been winning. Was it
I
me or was
I
it the
think
team? And
I
so,
think it would have been okay still
well, I mean,
because
again, we're talking like you said, he doesn't really carry his emotions that much, so he probably
right.
wouldn't let it get in his way.
But at the
But
same time, he's also a very logical and he's also a very smart individual. I think one of the reasons he's leaving Andretti is because he's seeing the fall off
yeah,
of Andretti. And I mean, I think if there is a part of you that it kind of gets the yips a little bit. Man, I'm a good race car driver. It really shouldn't matter fully my equipment. I should be able to get the most out of this car and at least be up there contending, but I haven't. So yeah, there could be like a mental factor there to overcome. And now that you got that monkey off your back, you don't have to worry about that. So that I think that does help. But I still think if he hadn't won this race going into next year, he's one of those guys that can kind of, clean slate, let's go, start fresh.
for sure. Um, So yeah, looking at some of the other performances from this race, we also want to give a standout performance. For me, that's Scott McLaughlin. I documented his struggles on the IMS road course. Last week. He has finishes of 8th, 23rd, and 20th in 3 starts. He started 15th, so nothing really to write home about, through the first little stage of the weekend, but he leads 10 laps. He ends up finishing 4th. He has his best finish on the Indy road course. I mean, all the Penske drivers, I mean, they had about, we've mentioned it a few times, through the course of, this weekend and during May of how bad of a run Penske had there for the month of May, and they've really turned it around. And like I said, all 3 Penske drivers finishing in the top 5. So Scott McLaughlin, hadn't run well on the IMS road course up to that point, and finally comes away with a strong performance. So coming from 15th, finishing 4th, that's got to feel good if you're Scott McLaughlin.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have seen him turn that corner this year. Obviously, 2 wins on the season. I expect him to be like fully contending for a championship here in the next year, at least. For me, I've already mentioned him once, but Christian Loongaard. I mean, there hasn't really been a rookie that's stepped up this year that's really shown out really well. But Christian Loongaard, I think, this was a performance that I hope that he can build on moving forward. And if he can, that really sets up his future really well as well. But for him to come out there and he's up there scrapping around with, Alexander Rossi, Colton Herta, Will Power, all the big guns. And he didn't back down. He raced them all hard. He had the speed to keep up with them. And that was an outstanding performance. I mean, I think that's one he's never going to forget as well. So good for him. Build off of that and see where this podium can take you.
So looking at the point standings coming away from this race here at Indy, the point standings looks as follows. Will Power is on top. Marcus Ericsson is now 9 points back in second. Joseph Newgarden is third, 32 points back. Scott Dixon is fourth, behind by 38 points. And Pato O'Ward rounds out the top 5, 46 back of Will Power. So looking at a storyline coming out of Indy as we now focus towards Nashville and the remainder of the IndyCar season, what are some big storylines? I think one big one has to be is this Will Power's year. And I know like of all the conversations we've had, about Marcus Ericsson, Scott McLaughlin had a great start. Joseph Newgarden led for a while. Will Power's kind of been, we haven't really spoken a whole lot about him except for, I guess we have kind of because the 2 times we've done, or a lot of the times we've done IndyCar stuff, it's been for the IMS races where he's been pretty good. But at the same time, I mean, he's just kind of been there all season. He's been very consistent. He comes out of IMS with the lead with 4 races left, albeit by 9 points. Like as we mentioned a little bit earlier, he has 10 top 5s on the season, his most since 2011, and more than the 8 he had during his title run in 2014.
That's an impressive number.
Right.
10 top 5s
out of what, 14 races?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty nuts.
That's like Scott Dixon like numbers. That's what wins Scott Dixon championships, and Will Power is just putting together the same, following that recipe.
Right. And yeah, like I said, more than his title run in 2014 as well. So that's 8. He was, the ones that he hasn't been in the top 5, 15th at the Indy 500. He was 19th at Road America, and every other race has been top 5. So I mean, it's pretty insane. The 4 remaining tracks, Power has wins at Gateway and Portland. So those are 2 tracks that Will Power has success at. His highest finish at Laguna Seca was 2nd in 2019. And I mean, we have a small sample size for Nashville. Literally last year's race, he finished 14th. In a season where
the guy that he's battling in the point standings won the race.
That is true. So that may be his only concern. But last season's 9th in the point standings was really his only outlier in his career. He's always been in the mix, finishing in the top 5 in all other seasons since going full-time in 2010. He's been consistent all season, so the question is, can he remain consistent? Can he continue to do well at tracks that he has history of doing well at? Or will he pan out the same way as our other point leaders have this season? I mean, 5 of the top 7 in points have led at some point during the season as far as the point standings are concerned. So only 4 races left. It's only a 9-point lead, though. So can Will Power, who's been consistent all year, now that he has the points lead back? Because I think he had the points lead after the first IMS road course race, because I think Palou was in the lead at the time, and because he was out relatively early, I think that gave Will Power the lead going into the Indy 500.
Going into the 500, he had the points lead.
So now that Will Power has it back, I'm interested to see if he can carry that forward. And a guy we talked about it last year on the podcast. The new wave of young guys, and I think the guy that's got the best shot at the title right now is Will Power.
Will Power,
your arch nemesis.
Yeah. That is a great question. Can he hold on to it, especially going into Nashville, with Marcus Ericsson being the reigning winner of that race?
And I mean, you could even say too that Marcus Ericsson's win is a little fluky. I mean, so I mean, you could say, and I mean, literally, I guess all 3 of his wins have been fluky, but at the same time,
doesn't matter. A win's a win.
Right? Exactly.
Look, I think Will Power has the recipe correct to maintain this points lead. He's been consistent all year long. He's taken the Scott Dixon route to this points lead right now, and it's a proven success. It will be interesting, though, because, I mean, can Marcus Ericsson make it interesting and win this race this weekend in Nashville? I don't know. Honestly, the guy the driver I'm looking at is the biggest threat to Will Power is still Joseph Newgarden. Because, one, look, winning in Nashville would mean everything to Joseph Newgarden. He's a Tennessee native. So I think, that would mean everything to him, and that would vault him right up there again. But in IndyCar, it's not as much about the wins as it is consistency to win a championship, as we've seen in the past. And all Will Power just has to do is drive his race and just keep that consistent course, and don't force it. Don't force the issue. Just drive smart. If you try to pick up wins, obviously that helps more than not. But if you can just keep up that level of consistency that you've had all season long, there's no reason you shouldn't be the champion at the end of the season.
For sure. Any other storylines you could think of, B. Scott, heading out of?
I mean, for me, I guess, I don't know. I am watching Joseph Newgarden. I guess for me going into this weekend, this is a big weekend for him. That's my big storyline. Because, last year, Penske just kind of seemed off. All of their cars were off last year. They weren't really competitive very much. I think they figured something out here recently, and they've, Joseph Newgarden's, he's been a recent winner as well. like I said, Nashville would be a big one for him. And I don't know that. And can Alexander Rossi carry any momentum from this past weekend into the remaining 4 races of the season? Because I could see him going on a tear as well. And he could play, I don't think he can win the championship, but he could play spoiler for somebody else as well.
Makes perfect sense. I think that would be fun to watch as well. So those are some storylines to watch for IndyCar. We'll switch it over to NASCAR here in just a second. Before we do, let's go ahead and hear about our friends of the show. First of all, from Anchor, the Crash Course Podcast is brought to you by Anchor. Looking to start a podcast but don't know where to start? Look no further than Anchor.fm. Anchor allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer or mobile device, and will distribute it to other sites such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. On a budget, not only is Anchor completely free of charge, but will allow you to make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. Anchor, it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Also, Eat Lunch and Board Game is is what brings you the Crash Course Podcast as well. It can be heard weekly on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be heard. Board games build bridges. So let's go ahead and transition now to the second half of the show. We're going to talk a little bit of NASCAR here. And let's look at the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard.
This was an entertaining race.
Oh, yeah. First of all, so much carnage in turn 1, as can be expected. Pretty much seemed like they couldn't get through that first lap after restarts at all.
Turn 4 at the end, or going into turn 4, saw some carnage as well. That's right where my seats are. We're right there between turns 3 and 4, which is also between turns 3 and 4 on the oval. But yeah, so that's always fun. Oh, and one of the drivers earlier in the race took a long detour through the sand trap, and he was up there contending near the end as well. So
I thought you were going to say he made a lap around the actual oval and just came around.
Oh, one guy almost did. The European champion from NASCAR, his car kind of blew up on him, and he had to come down into turn 4 of the oval, and he parked it right in front of us, and this thing was leaking, and they had to tow it back to the garage. Very similar situation happened at the Harvick a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, Joey Logano, yeah, but a couple of years ago, Takuma Sato, same thing happened. His car died on him, and he had to go off the access road and was right there. Had to hop out of the car right there in front of us in turn 4.
So. Always a real entertaining part of the track. Chase Briscoe takes the win in stage 1. Christopher Bell takes the win in stage 2. Stage 3, that's when a lot of the magic happened. Tyler Reddick passes Christopher Bell on the front stretch for the lead. That's lap 50.
Good car.
Lap 61, Kyle Larson, quote unquote, loses his brakes coming into turn 1, crashing into Ty Dillon,
which has apparently been debunked.
Yes.
And Hendrick Motorsports engineers have come out and said, we have no data proving Kyle Larson's brakes failed on him. It looks like the data shows Kyle Larson came in hot, hit the curb, and went for a ride.
Pretty wild.
Unfortunately, took out Ty Dillon along the way, and Ty Dillon was having a really good race.
Right. Kind of a little bit of irony that it was the number 42 that he took out as well. That's the car number that he used to drive as well back in the day. But yeah, so a very scary incident. Glad both drivers are okay. Lap 78, Christopher Bell blows a tire. Debris from that brings out the yellow. Lap 81, Austin Dillon spins into the gravel, bringing out the third yellow in 20 laps. Just kind of vintage NASCAR there. A lot of yellows at the end as guys are frantically trying to get to the front. So that brings us to overtime. Tyler Reddick restarts in the lead, but Ross Chastain opts to use the access road in turn 1. He comes away with the lead. Reddick retakes the lead in turn 12 and never looks back. Tyler Reddick wins his second career race, both coming this season. He led 38 laps. Ross Chastain was penalized for using the access road. I think he ends up 27th.
27th.
Austin Cindric, Harrison Burton, Todd Gilliland, and Bubba Wallace round out the top 5. So doing kind of the same thing we did with IndyCar. One word to describe Tyler Reddick's win. For me, it's resilient. He starts P1, led a majority of stage 1, opts to pit from the lead prior to the conclusion of stage 1, finishes 15th. Same kind of strategy for stage 2, pits shortly before the conclusion of the stage, finishes 12th. And this is just to point out that it wasn't like he was starting out front free of all the turn 1 carnage every restart. He was back mixing it up. He was putting himself in harm's way every time he opted to do that strategy. So
strategies were all over the place on Sunday.
Yeah, so for that to actually like work, where he didn't end up, at least damaged somehow along the way, that's pretty crazy. Stage 3, I mean, you could see the frustration on the faces of Reddick's crew when the bell caution came out. I mean, they were closing in on the end of their fuel window, so that was kind of an issue.
It closed in Chase Elliott on him too, and Chase Elliott was on his car was on it at that point.
And extra compounded by the Dillon caution, and I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if it's just because laps on the road course are so long, but I felt like that caution would not end. I felt like there was
also a lot to clean up there.
I guess TV did not make it look like it was as bad as it was then, because he was
almost the entire passenger side of Ty Dillon's car was torn off.
No, well, in the Dillon wreck, when Dillon
Ty Dillon,
Austin Dillon.
Oh, you're talking about his brother. You got to be more specific.
That's true. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about that.
Okay, I'm thinking of another one.
I'm thinking Austin Dillon when he spun into the gravel at the end of the race.
Yeah, that one. There was more cars involved with it. That's the one that happened right in front of us.
Yeah,
and he got stuck. So you got to actually get him towed out. There's a little bit, and then they came through to make sure that there was no gravel, because at that point, that is it's a accelerating point on the track. When they're going into turn 4 right there on the road course, they do shoot it out wide and they get into the gas. So where he went off and they got him back on, there would have been a ton of gravel right there. So they wanted to make sure it was cleared off fully, because if there was any gravel there, that could have been pretty slippery as those cars are coming in and hitting that accelerator, because a lot of cars were already locking it up. All Saturday and qualifying and practice, they were locking it up. All race, they were locking it up right there. The tires kept smoking. So if you had any extra gravel right there, that was going to cause some mayhem. So that's probably why the caution was extended. In person, it didn't feel that long. But I think that was the big issue, was just making sure the track was completely clear, so there was no.
I gotcha. That makes sense. It just seemed like that caution would not end. I don't know if it was because
there was quite a few cars that were involved in it. It was probably about 3 or 4.
I gotcha. I don't know.
Got piled up.
Right. Yeah, I was like, I don't know if it was just because like I was watching it on TV and they kept going to commercial, or maybe it was because I was like trying to get the outline done. So I was like, come on, let's get this going so I can finish.
It definitely was not like last year when they had the red flag, the racing.
Right, yeah.
Basically repave everything. So yeah,
it
was pretty quick in comparison.
Right, for sure. So that meant there was one final restart. Reddick is passed by Chastain, who uses the access road. So even though Chastain could have been penalized, Reddick still has to race just as if he's not penalized. It's just kind of like last year with the whole Chase Briscoe, Denny Hamlin situation. But anyway, I mean, Reddick ends up taking the lead. So, there were a lot of obstacles in Tyler Reddick's way that he had to overcome en route to the win. But at the end of the day, he gets it done. It was a heck of a race by Reddick, a good win for him. He's got a ton of momentum. Didn't realize, I guess, as someone who doesn't follow NASCAR as close anymore, I don't know how frequent it is that you sign with a team like 18 months down the road, like he did leaving RCR. So that's interesting. I think that was news a couple of weeks ago, but I guess I had either forgotten about it or just wasn't thinking about it. I was like, man, that's 18 months from now. So he's got a lot of momentum after a good month of July. So a good win by him. But yeah, resilient. He was putting himself in harm's way. He had all sorts of obstacles, but was able to overcome it and get that win at Indy.
My word to describe the race in general: entertaining. I mean, different strategies were playing out. You had lots of passing. Yeah, when somebody got out into the lead, they could pull away. But I mean, that happens just about anywhere. But still, there was drivers able to reel them in. And you saw lead changes because of the different strategies, because of all the different restarts. It was good racing. Unfortunately, the guys that don't drive very well on the road course, that dominate on the oval, feel very differently. Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick wanted to boo-hoo about how unfair it is that we're not utilizing such a beautiful oval. Well, I can kind of agree with that, but at the same time, the product on the track is a lot better than what it has been when you guys would run away with it from start to finish. So yeah, sorry. But there was some news on that later on that was announced over the weekend as well. Plus some other really good news. Lots of great news coming out of the track this weekend, folks. Like lots of great news. But yeah, the race was very entertaining. Unfortunately, my pick and one of my favorite drivers, was up there in second place and got spun by his best friend. Yeah, looking at you, Ryan Blaney, spinning out Chase Elliott. But entertaining race as always. I think the road course is a great move for these guys because it has. I mean, these new cars are really good on the road course. I would like to see what these cars look like on the oval, though, because some of these other races have become more entertaining as well because of these new cars. Where in the past, like Kansas hasn't always been the most entertaining, and
a lot of Kansas hate the last 2 weeks.
It's pretty across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, entertaining race. Great run for Tyler Reddick. I mean, he was strong this weekend, so good for him. Yeah, I'll get into my driver once you tell me who your outstanding performance was.
Yeah, my standout performance was AJ Allmandinger. His cool suit wasn't working. He had a fantastic weekend. His cool suit wasn't working. He didn't have water at the end of the race. I mean, he doesn't race for points. He doesn't run a full schedule. He won last year's race. He won the Xfinity race the day before. He had every excuse to be like, guys, I'm dying
and
here.
He got off course.
Right. He got off.
Well, he ended up in that wreck with Austin Dillon.
He had every excuse to be like, guys, I'm phoning this one in. It was a good run.
I'm done. We're calling it a day.
Yeah. But yet he's still good. I mean, and I know that these guys are athletes and they don't have that mentality sometimes, but I think it's easier to make that call when you're not in a points race or anything like that. Instead, stands in there, drives her home, ends up finishing 7th. He continued to race hard. So the fact that, he gets out of the car and collapses similar to kind of what you saw. I think it was 1998 with Ricky Rudd. I'm sure there's more recent examples, but that's the one that pops into my head with Ricky Rudd winning at Martinsville in 1998 when his same kind of similar issue happened. So, I mean, to be able to kind of brave the elements a little bit, all the things that just weren't working out for him and getting a top 10 finish out of it. Pretty good race by Allmandinger.
I can tell you why he put up with that. He summed it up in his victory interview on Saturday, and he just let out Indy baby. He loves Indy. I mean, he's raced in the Indy 500 for goodness sakes. Come on, the guy loves racing at Indy. I think he's going to try to he takes every opportunity he can. I'd love to see him back in an IndyCar again. I think that'd be fun, but that's a different topic for a different day. For me, my standout was Todd Gilliland. I mean, all weekend, he just kind of had a quiet weekend, just right up there, qualified well, ran well all day. It's like, holy moly, is Todd Gilliland still up there? Like, okay, we see you, Todd. Here we go. Let's have a good race. He kept the car clean. He just ran it consistent, and it was a good unassuming run for him. That I don't think too many people talk about. Now, and William Byron had himself quite a run too before getting caught up in some carnage. But I mean, he was on a 2-stop strategy. He didn't take his first pit stop until the end of stage 2, which wasn't very long. It was like 37 laps, but still his tires were screaming. and he saved fuel really well. I think him and Christopher Bell were on the same strategy, but I mean, he had a great run until he got caught up in some stuff. Same thing with Chase Elliott, battled back from his strategy that kept putting him back at the end of back of the pack. He was up there contending for the win before he got spun out, and he actually spun it in turn one earlier in the race by himself. So, so battle back from that, but definitely Todd Gilliland. He just kind of had an unassuming day, but he was always there. Sometimes with these types of races of attrition and where, you know, things get kind of messy, those are the drivers that you don't talk about, you don't think about and see, but then they put up, like, you look at the final results and you're like, huh, that's right, he was up there all day. Good for him. So gotta give him some props there.
Yeah, for sure. Is he's I can't remember. We covered this, or at least I know I looked this up during the Daytona 500. Is he related to David Gilliland, who was in the?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I think it's his dad.
I gotcha. That's what I thought.
There's a lot of sons.
Right, and I remember during the Daytona 500, I was like, I confused the two. I confused Todd for David.
Oh, that happens to me all the time because I mean they're so like not too far apart.
Because that was a weird run. Because like, for a while, the M&M's car like was pretty iconic. You had like, you know, Elliott Sadler in there, that kind of, you know, and then all this Ernie Irvan was in there for a time, and then it ended up being like David Gilliland for a while, and you're like, okay, that's fine. So I like when I heard Gilliland, I was like, he's still around. Like I remember covering, you know, him during the race weekend rewind days at Ball State. So, I mean, yeah, I was like, wait, and so I had to look that up and be like, oh yeah, it's his son. Okay, got it. Okay. But I think we can agree. I mean, you know, we talked about it a little bit off air and on the podcast. Like race number 2 and the races combined at you know, for NASCAR on the road course, I think are very successful. I mean, I think this is a much better alternative to the product we had, you know, when it was on the oval. I mean, of course, like you mentioned, maybe with the newer cars, you could try it on the oval and see how it goes, and maybe get some tests in, see if the racing is any better, or maybe I don't know how you would do that in terms of seeing.
Well, good news for you.
Okay.
Roger Penske did announce over the weekend that yes, they are returning to the road course in 2023. However, in 2024, they are going back to the oval, and I believe he also said 2025 as well. Beyond 2025, they are going to look at alternating every other year of it being a road course race or an oval race. Honestly, based on the other announcement from over the weekend at IMS, where IMSA announced they are returning and they're going to be allowing camping in the infield for fans and gradually building up to a long endurance race. My guess would be at some point there is going to be lights on the road course for a 24-hour endurance race with IMSA. I wouldn't be surprised to see NASCAR on the road course at night. Now, is there going to be lights on the oval? I don't know. I mean, if there would be, that'd be a great move as well. But I would like to see the NASCAR, like the Verizon 200 or whatever it is in the future, on the road course at night. I think that'd be a really cool setup and something that NASCAR fans would be really drawn to. But that's that's neither here nor there. I think that could be setting up for some options, at least with IndyCar. But yes, they are going to bring back the oval, and they are going to try to keep the road course as well. Honestly, if both go well, I wouldn't mind seeing NASCAR come here twice. Once for the road course and once for the oval. You know, we got enough prestige here that if you want to come to someplace twice and get two different scenarios, this is it. This is a great opportunity for that. I mean, you were going to Daytona 3 times and it was great. I wish they would still do the Daytona road course, but you know, you go to Charlotte twice. You go to Charlotte more than twice, I think. I think you're there 3 times because you do the Roval.
Oh yeah, I get. Well, no, do they do the Roval instead of the fall race?
Oh yeah, so maybe they are there twice. See, it works for Charlotte,
Yeah.
So why not try that same scenario here in Indy as well? I think that could be an option in the future. But yes, they have announced that they're going to do both, alternating years. But I could see it if it's a success on both. I could see Roger Penske trying to push for being on the calendar twice. But yeah, I'm okay with it going back to seeing what the oval has with these cars. Of course, by the time they get there, who knows if Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick will even be racing still. But yeah,
I mean, it's tough because I don't like the alternating thing is kind of weird. I mean, I guess if they do that, fine. I don't think it's gonna do any necessarily any harm. But I'd almost rather see them do the same, like go to Indy twice in the same season, like maybe. Like,
and I think that's what Roger Penske's setting.
Right, but I mean, I'd rather see them do it initially as opposed to alternating every year because, okay, so you start alternating it. What if that first race back on the oval is still a dud? Well, then that's
why they're doing it. They're going to do it 2 years in a row on the oval before starting to go alternating.
See, I don't like. I'd rather them do road course and oval in the same season and compare the two. I mean, I know the NASCAR schedule isn't there just to appease Indianapolis and figure out what we want to do, but at the same time, I think from a fan perspective, I would rather not have if the road course is doing really well, okay, so that'll be 4 years of the road course. If it's done really well and fans are really invested and excited about it again, then I don't want the snooze fest. If the snooze fest 400 is going to come back for 2 years, I mean, does that then, if the racing's still bad, does that get people disinterested in the road course? Because they're just gonna. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing out.
I don't think so. I think it would probably get people more interested in the road course, and then they can say, "Look, the racing still sucks on the oval. These cars aren't built for this oval anymore. We're sticking with the road course," and then we can look at other options with it, like maybe we put it at night. Those types of different things. But I am okay with them doing 2 years of the oval to see. Give it its fair shake again. And if the racing's really good, then I think Roger Penske has a case on his hands. Like, hey, look, we put on a good show here for the road course. We put on a good show here for the oval. Let's bump off one of these tracks that's not bringing people in.
Kansas, or Kansas hate.
Or Kansas. Let's look at bringing them here twice. So you have something different, and you also have the prestige, but it's still Indianapolis. It's the racing capital of the world. Yeah, it's not the NASCAR racing capital of the country, but it's Indianapolis. It has meaning to everybody. So if you can get them here twice, guess what? The fans are going to show up regardless. But if it's bad, if the racing isn't good on the oval, I can see them ditching the oval altogether and saying, look, we're just going to stick with the road course.
Yeah.
Forget alternating years. This is a business we got to run, and we're entertainment. We are still entertainment regardless. And if we can't put on a good show on the oval, it's done. And we're sticking with the road course where it's entertaining. People like it. It's a good race. Yeah, the drivers may not like it, but guess what? You still got to race it, and you guys all put on a good race. You guys race each other hard. It's like right now, it's the two people that are crying the most about it are the ones that aren't competing very well aren't really good road course racers, and used to dominate on the oval. They would run away and not have to worry about anybody. So I don't want to hear that moaning and crying when it's pretty obvious why you are saying that. Now, yeah, I would like to see what these new cars, this next gen car looks like on the oval, because we have seen it make other races like Michigan more entertaining as well. It tightens the pack up a little bit more. So I'm okay with testing it out. If it works, let Roger Penske work his magic and get them here twice. If it doesn't work, just stick with the road course. We know that works.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Now I'm interested to see when you would have that second, or would you dare put that second NASCAR date anywhere near the month of May, like June,
No.
like the first weekend
October.
in June, or
October.
Yeah, I could see October.
Early October.
I mean, but then you run the issue of potentially the weather unless you put the road course in October.
Yeah, but
remember when the USGP used to be in September and you would have like every other year be crappy weather?
Yeah, I mean, if IMSA's taking September, that's going to be a tough one. I mean, maybe you come in June for the road course or the oval, late June or mid-June, and then come back in July for the next race. Or if it's good enough racing, look at putting it in the playoffs. I mean, that's a push. That's a huge stretch. So I think like a June and July, or heck,
although I mean
April.
I don't know what races are in the. I know some of them. I know Talladega is in the.
I know some
playoffs.
drivers would love to lose Talladega in the playoffs.
that I mean that's true, but I was like,
because that's such a crap.
It would be really cool though if you could get like some of the more prestigious tracks in the playoff. Like if you're like, okay, we're gonna go to because they do.
Well, they tried that with Indy for 1 year. We were the last track before the playoffs started. We were the cutoff for guys to make the playoffs. That was like their last ditch effort on the oval, and the weather was pretty good. I remember that was the one I was at. Kevin Harvick drove away with it. The weather was pretty good for that one. I think that was in September. So, I mean, you could, if you could bring IMSA in for the road course in September, and then a week or two later, you could bring NASCAR in for a race on the oval. I mean, you're able to switch that track over a course of a few days. There's no reason you can't, over a couple weeks, get things ready.
I'm just saying it would be cool in general to just have a race like they already moved Daytona off July 4th, so like maybe switch out the second Talladega race, put the second Daytona race in there, have your most iconic tracks in the postseason. I would much rather have that than I don't know. I mean, I know they go on the Roval, like I said.
But
I know there's some other tracks.
Is really one of the most iconic tracks for NASCAR?
I mean, I would say it's up there. I don't know.
Outside of the state of Indiana for racing, does everybody else view IMS as one of the most iconic tracks for NASCAR?
Yeah, IndyCar, it's still. I mean, you see the drivers. I mean, it still means something for them to win.
Oh yeah,
in Indy. But so I that's what I'm saying. I mean,
it was always a big deal for the driver if a driver won both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400.
Right.
So, I don't know. I mean, it's a good debate and it's a good thing to think about. I wouldn't push if you're going to push for Indy being on the schedule twice potentially. I wouldn't push it to try to get it into the playoffs. But first things first, if the oval works, let's push for twice on the schedule. And then if that really performs well long term, then maybe push for a spot in the playoffs. Who knows? But I can tell you that having Doug Bowles and Roger Penske at the helm of that ship, there is endless possibilities with them.
See, so I got the playoffs schedule pulled up. Round of 16, as it stands right now, is Darlington, Kansas, Bristol. Then round of 12,
rid of Kansas.
Right? I knew you were going to say that.
Kansas.
There you go.
Kansas.
You dropped them out of there. Round of 12 is Texas, Talladega, Charlotte, Roval. And then round of 8, Las Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, and then the championship race is Phoenix. I mean, when I look
how many road course races were on there?
There's only one, just the Roval? The Roval, yeah.
Why not have two?
Yeah.
Why not dump Kansas?
We brought up last week about having another road course.
Put the IMS road course in place of Kansas.
Yeah.
And then do the oval, do the Brickyard 400 in last weekend of July.
Yeah, take away Gateway's race, bro. I don't. Kansas has 2 races. Take them both away. Just full on. I know. I'm just joking.
Because you need that
but
TV market.
But like, why do we? I don't know. I mean, maybe I guess I don't pay enough attention to really weigh in completely. But like, can we get rid of? Like, we don't need 2 races at Phoenix. We don't need 2 races at Las Vegas.
Oh, Phoenix is entertaining though. They reconfigured that track, and it's a good race.
That is true. I do like. It's really weird how they reconfigured it. It always confuses me when I watch it. But
my buddy he's actually been out there for one of the Phoenix races, but even I think it was after they reconfigured. He said it's a great track. Like. He even said that would be the one I would want IndyCar.
And I mean, you already have iconic tracks in the playoff as it stands. I mean, Darlington, that's iconic for NASCAR. Bristol, that's iconic for NASCAR. Martinsville, that's iconic. Talladega, even if they hate it, that's iconic. Charlotte, that's like
I don't think they hate it, but I think it would be a sigh of relief to not have Talladega in the playoffs, especially being a cutoff race.
But like Homestead is like, for instance, Homestead's on there. Homestead's only iconic because for the longest time it was the last race of the year. And it was like kind of the end point. I think now that it's not, you're just kind of like meh on that. Heck, I could see them if they're trying to do more street races, doing the street Formula 1 race at Miami rather than Homestead.
The Formula 1, I didn't really like that one.
Really? I didn't.
So
interesting. I don't know. I guess I'm not a big fan of 2 Las Vegas races. Las Vegas is iconic, but I wouldn't say more iconic than Indy in terms of NASCAR terms. I think
but Las Vegas is better suited for those cars anyways. So keep it.
So yeah, you definitely
but because Las Vegas brings in the people still.
Right.
You know.
I was looking at terms of like iconic tracks like in NASCAR. So like you already kind of have that vibe anyway, so it'd be cool to add Indy to that mix.
That's why you dump Kansas in the playoffs.
so much Kansas
problem solved. Problem solved.
Why do we have 2 races? Come on. All right, moving on to
at Bob Pockras. Why do we have 2 races at Kansas?
Can we get rid of?
Can you
Kansas?
Explain the logic behind that one? Like,
I mean,
I guess what else is out there to replace it with right now? Well, let's see if the oval here in Indy works out. If it works out, bye Kansas. Hello, second race in Indy. I mean, and I guess it's also a shameless plug for me because I'm like, look, another race at Indy is a great because it's another weekend out at the track, and I love going out to the track. I mean, I was just out there all weekend this past weekend, and I'm going again this Thursday night for the dirt track race in Turn 3. I just love being out there. So any opportunity, and I think that's the thing. That's what's great about Roger Penske and Doug Boles being at the helm of that operation over there is, obviously Roger Penske owns it and Doug Boles is the president, but both of them want people there more. They want more events there. They want it to be a place where people come to again. I'm all for it. So like I keep saying, if the oval works out, let's get them on the schedule twice.
For sure.
Even if it means if you want to keep Kansas in the playoffs and put us in a place of Kansas in the regular season, that's fine. I don't care. Just get us on the schedule twice if it works. If the oval works, that's the big if. I'm not going to push it if it's a dud of a couple races, but if it works and it's an entertaining race, then yes. If not Kansas, you have nothing to worry about.
Throw out the last 10 minutes of what we said if the race still stinks on the oval. So looking at the point standings coming away from IMS, Chase Elliott is still the leader. Ryan Blaney sits 125 points back in second. Ross Chastain is 4 points behind Blaney in third. Fourth is Martin Truex Jr. He's behind by 150 points, and rounding out the top 5 is Kyle Larson back by 154 points behind his teammate Elliott. So looking at the playoff standings, which I didn't realize there was 2-point standings for NASCAR, but you've got
a regular season champ and a playoff.
You've got Elliott, Chastain, Joey Logano, William Byron, and Ryan Blaney are the top 5. So storyline to watch for me coming out of Indy, and it's kind of similar to the one you had for IndyCar in terms of like seeing if like Joseph Newgarden would pan out and that kind of thing. And that's just, I'm interested to see how some of these drivers pan out as far as emerging for playoff contention. I mean, and playoff drivers. Some dark horses for that for a run at the playoffs. First of all, starting off with Tyler Reddick. I mean, he is hot in the streets right now. He's won 2 races in July. He inked a new deal with 2311 Racing starting in 2024. He's 11th in points right now, and there's one more road course in the regular season. That's at Watkins Glen. I'm sure Reddick will be in the mix there to try to make it 3 in a row on the season. So he's going to be a driver to watch. Austin Cindric. I mean, he had a good run. He's your Daytona 500 winner through June 2nd. He had only 1 top 10 outside of that Daytona win since June 12th. He has 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and he was second at Indy this weekend. He's getting hot at the right time. I mean, we had talked about the emergence of Trackhouse Racing last week. Christopher Bell was putting together a solid month before his tire issues. I don't know if any of the drivers that I just went through can really contend with Chase Elliott. I mean, that'll remain to be seen. But
or Hendrick in general.
Hendrick. Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, before this weekend, Elliott had won or finished second at each of the last 5 races, but Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex are both winless this season. Kyle Larson has just 1 win. Some of the names.
Kevin Harvick on the outside looking in still.
Right. Yeah, he is. He's like 16th or 17th, I think.
All it takes is 2 more first-time winners that are full-time drivers. Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex and Ryan Blaney, they're out.
Right.
They're out. I mean, Ryan Blaney, the fact that he's sitting up there in the regular season standings is great. But when push comes to shove, gotta win a race. Gotta win a race.
And so like some of those names that we're used to being in the hunt and having, have envisioned as being up there early in the season, they haven't had the seasons we've kind of thought they would, and that's left the door open for some of these drivers that I mentioned that haven't really been in the mix legitimately before to actually be in the mix. So I'm interested to see what the rest of the season holds for Reddick, Cindric, and the Trackhouse drivers. I think they're going to make it. Like I said, it's going to be tough to beat the Hendrick drivers, especially Elliott, but I think those are some drivers that can be in the mix and kind of change up what we're used to seeing out of the playoffs. Because even last year, I mean, it was Larson, it was Truex, it was Logano, it was guys where it's guys that I've talked about in NASCAR since 10 years ago. So I mean, these are some newer guys that are kind of maybe not necessarily newer, but newer as far as being in the mix that have a chance to kind of shake up the playoff picture a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Chase Elliott can keep up his consistency as well, similar to Will Power. Look, yeah, Chase Elliott finished 17th he finished, I think it was 17th or 16th on Sunday, but he racked up stage points yet again. I mean, he worked his way back up. At the end of each stage, he was right there. I think stage 1 he finished 8th, and stage 2 he finished 5th. So that's why he is, he's got such a lead going for the playoffs, because he knows how to play the game, and it's working out well for him right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can keep up that consistency. Because I think he was a little frustrated after this weekend. Obviously, I would be too. But if he can keep up the consistency he's had, there's nobody can touch him in the points, obviously. And now it's a little different though, because it's not about being consistent once you get to the playoffs. It's about winning races once you get to the playoffs. So but he's done that this year as well. He's proven he can do that just about on any style of track except restrictor plate. But restrictor plates are such a crapshoot.
Yeah, they're a coin flip. So
yeah. So, but for me also, I'm right there with you. Who can step up and challenge him? Are we gonna see 2 more first-time winners and see some of these vets be left on the outside looking in that are normal contenders? Is this an ending of an era for some of these vets as well? I mean, Kevin Harvick just has not looked good at all this year, and it's not like he's got bad cars or bad equipment. He's got good equipment, so that's a storyline to follow there the rest of the way. Are we really now officially seeing the full changing of the guard? in NASCAR. I mean, we have seen it the past 2 years with Chase Elliott winning a championship and Kyle Larson winning a championship. They're younger drivers. I mean, yeah, it feels like they've been around forever, but they are still younger drivers. And it's going to be interesting to see how these next few months unfold for some of these older drivers and with these younger drivers, and how it all meshes together and how it plays out for the future.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. I mean, a lot of racing left. I mean, heck, there's
Chase Elliott still my pick to win the championship.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got 4 races left in the regular season. I didn't realize that Daytona is actually the last race of the regular season, so that's kind of crazy. And then, yeah, they'll get into the playoffs, and it'll be interesting to see what happens from there. There are some interesting drivers that are up there, some drivers we're not used to seeing, which I think will be, which will be crazy. I didn't realize Kevin Harvick had such a crazy season until we were, looking at it the last couple of weeks. So, it'll be interesting to see if he can crack in there as well. But should be a fun rest of the way for both series, both IndyCar and NASCAR. It's going to be fun to watch regardless. A lot of good racing on the horizon. But for right now, that will do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Remember that you can follow us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go follow us on Twitter as well, 3C Media Sports. Go check out the YouTube channel. We've got a lot of great content over there, some standalone videos and things like that. So go over and check that out. You guys have been killing it as far as the support, so we appreciate that. Make sure
shout out to the Scott Dixon fans that tune in constantly.
Exactly. Make sure you ring that bell, like and subscribe. 3C Media on TikTok as well. And remember, you can listen or watch every week. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever podcasts can be heard, you can hear the Crash Course Podcast. You can find me at Craig Crash FM on Twitter. B. Scott, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
Well, next week we're going to be back to the football conversation, our high school football preview. It's going to be a lot of fun to dive into that. We're going to be breaking down all 6 classes, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, have a good one, everybody.